Everyone.
We're gonna have you back on.
Hold on.
Look at the camera and say, I'm coming back on.
I'm coming back on. Hold on. What I deal with, with the minimization of the actual issues that I deal with, telling me that although you've been talking about white identity politics for years, now all of a sudden that I want to talk about my specific identity, that's all of a sudden divisive. That's a big one. When I talk about the issues that impact my life, because still doesn't happen in the US, it happens other places in the world. Yeah. People don't pull me over and ask me for my baptismal certificate. Are you Christian? That's not why I'm getting pulled over in the United States. That's not why I'm getting pulled over. When I want to talk about the issues that are very specific to me as an individual, you ignore that or you dismiss that. You want to try and use statistics that you yourselves don't actually understand within the context of America, where you have not done any of the actual research, even as you tout yourself as critical thinkers, as the more educated, the elite. You refuse to actually do the research that's associated with my identity. And yet you want to ask the question, why aren't I part of you? Where the question is,
it's not asked with a longing, it's just asked as a question.
Mine was purely a conjecture.
I'm
purely speculating. It's not based on any stats.
I know.
It's also a matter. Guessing. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
I know, Jim.
It's also a matter of trying to set priorities. You know, like what is the most important thing to focus on?
Survival.
All right.
Survival. Number 2 is trying to strive. Number 3 is not dealing with the cultural baggage that comes with America. Number 4 is everything that you as an individual deal with on a daily basis. Guess what? I deal with the same shit too.
Someone still in the atheist closet, right? Is it their own community that they're more afraid of, or the community at large?
What do you mean?
Like,
okay,
say
I want for a black atheist to come out. Is he more afraid of his family and his church and his community, or is he more afraid of society? Oh, I'm black now, I'm a fucking atheist. Which
is worse?
Which one is worse? Oh wow, black now I'm an atheist because it still comes to group dynamics and the numbers. There is strength in numbers. Yeah. And me being a black Christian, talking about civil rights issues, talking about inequality or inequity, I've got a much bigger number to draw from versus me being a black atheist with no backing from my atheist community, my humanist community.
Preeminently persecuted as a black atheist, more so than as a black Christian.
Right, but I don't actually believe that I am part of a victimhood culture.
Good.
That is a good. I think that's an important mentality to try to hang on to.
Yeah, it's
leg up. Well, like Milo is a gay Republican, or Larry Elder is a black conservative. You know, just being
Milo's
that purple
a gay
squirrel.
Republican Catholic.
Yeah, just being that purple squirrel, that fictional character, that can be a leg up though sometimes, right? You're that severe minority.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true.
Notoriety?
Not notoriety.
I don't think that's true.
You have a voice. Look at me.
Okay.
You think Milo, if he wasn't gay, would be half as popular? I think that lends a lot of it.
No, I don't
They can't shit on him as much as they want to because he's part of the LBGT community. So they go,
but he's not.
Supposedly.
He's in opposition to it.
I don't know.
What do you mean he's in opposition? He just got married.
Yes, and he made a very ardent statement that he's anti-gay marriage.
Yeah, that's what I'm confused about.
Yeah,
what contradiction.
Yeah.
Well,
why hasn't anybody asked him about that?
But most of us are walking contradictions.
Oh, well.
Most of us.
Most of us?
Most of us?
Oh, they said, someone said, at least we can all agree that punching a Nazi is funny.
I would
Counterproductive.
Exactly. I was just going to say that.
Counterproductive.
Counterproductive. Yeah, definitely.
Upper body strength is also important for aides in a nursing home, yet most are female. That's an interesting point.
True.
And nurses have the back injury rights to show that's an issue.
Yeah.
Well,
and
were we able to hear that, everybody?
Yeah,
it was from our audience, our studio audience. So it was the nurses' injury rate. Will actually show back injuries quite a bit.
Does that speak for or against females even being nurses' aides?
And is that female centric, or does that happen to male nurses also?
Oh, good point. Yeah.
That was
but
the point. The point was is that female.
The
point was that that the audience made is that female centric, or is that specific? Yeah. Is it?
Well, it might
just as prominent among men.
It has to do more to overwork. Women, nurses of every sex have tools to help them with that, but often they're pressured. You can't use that tool. It takes too long.
What did I?
You said oof. He said ooh.
I know. What did I miss?
Do women have more empathy?
There was a comment online about female caregivers having to lift their patients out of bathtubs and things, and that's more prominent among women than men for filling that role, and they were comparing that to what we were talking about with firefighters. Disagree just now?
If female caregivers are experiencing more physical problems when they like pull their big patient out of a tub and they get back problems. If a female, so if the sexual dimorphism is into play here, and we're talking. Males might be just a hypothesis, males might be inherently better able to care for patients in, say, a hospice or,
I think that's a conflation of whether they can lift them versus whether they can be an appropriate caregiver in general.
But if you can't meet all the physical requirements of the job.
That's the question. Is should that be a requirement of the job?
Pulling someone out of a bathtub?
If there are, like Mark was just saying, if there are tools that can help you do that, but it's frowned upon to use them because they take more time, is that something that should be looked at? But now, in terms of like women being physically typically not as fit as men for certain jobs, I don't know if this would apply, but in terms of being a person with a cognitive disability, for me, there are certain jobs that will outright reject me if they know that I have that, because of the route that I have to go through HR to give them my diagnosis and have accommodations brought down that are reasonable. But just the action of me going to HR after hiring and having accommodations brought down, they will find a reason to fire me because they will find that to be me going over my management's head. Especially in sales. And so that's what's scary to me, is that in certain fields, like in academics, many people are going to be more accommodating to things like my disability and my accommodations than fields that are a little bit more cutthroat, like maybe law or sales or medical field. Even though medical field includes mental health, but it makes the system of the workforce naturally discriminatory anyway, even though there are accommodations. But I was just wondering if that's particularly generalizable to women with the physical aspect in the workforce.
One of the things that I learned very early on in life is listen to the women. I don't care how sexist you believe that is. Listen to the women, because the women are always going to tell you something that you need to pay attention to. And my mother was a nurse, and she was a nursing aide first, and then she was a nurse. And I came from a very matriarchal background. My mom, my grandmother, my aunts were very prominent in my life. women surrounded me all the time. And the one thing that they always told me was listen, listen, listen. Listen first. You can have your opinion, but listen first. And some of the stories that I heard from them, I still hear today is, you know, when it comes to the discomfort of caring for male patients or male patients with, you know, things like Alzheimer's or various dementias that are caused by different sources, and you know, the lines that are consistently crossed all across the board. It's they have a story to tell, and sometimes it's told almost in silence. Listen to the women first. Always listen to the women.
Why do you think that's a thing?
Why that's a thing? Because my mom, even when this was 30, 40 years ago, she would talk about she's trying to, you know, take care of a male patient, and the male patient has a flashback or decides that he's going to grab and grope and what have you. And okay, then what does she have to deal with? Well, she could file a complaint, but then the question is, so are you saying that you're incapable of taking care of this male patient?
Right.
Do you really not like your job? Do you really believe that you are centered in care enough to not dismiss this, because this is just a reality of just dealing with.
If that's unavoidable, then
if it's unavoidable,
then are you still willing to fill the requirements of the job? Yeah.
Well, not only that, are the question of your commitment or your qualification comes into play. And you know, doctors are not nurses, but nurses also have an oath to care. And quite often it is often dismissed when it comes to the role of male patients versus bodily autonomy. So it always and those subsequent boundaries that just come there. Again, we talk about cultural norms and what's expected versus not. So if we're going to use, and I think this is always important, yes, I think the minority voice is very important when measuring, if we're going to do a canary test, whether it's the atheist community or other communities, I think it's always important to listen to the women, because they got a whole lot to tell us.
Do you all have any saved rounds? Any other questions?
Any what?
Do you have any questions saved for him?
No. Did you get to ask?
Hell no. There's about 3 days worth of questions.
Yeah,
right. I told him, I was like, this could be a 12-hour podcast.
Well, I'm going to give you the opportunity now before I keep in. I don't want to keep firing away.
I'm going to say, because he mentioned, he's like, well, let's talk about black on black crime. I was like, well, if we're going to talk about black on black crime, we might as well talk about white on white crime, and why white men decide that they want to take out a gun and decide that they're going to start shooting in crowds and theaters and shit like that. And when in reality, when we talk about black on black crime specifically, if we're going to do anything else, when we talk about homicide specifically, intraracial versus interracial crime is almost negligible when it comes to the comparison. We're talking about 90-some-odd% versus 87%, something like that. So blacks commit crimes, especially when we start looking at homicides versus white committing crimes against versus white homicides. And then, of course, you have the population demographics. So when people start saying, well, what about black on black crime? It's like, you're obviously not being intellectually honest when it comes to the conversation. Nice red herring. Next. If you really want to talk about crime and population demographics, we also need to talk about the resources that are associated with those population demographics, which can also be extrapolated across racial lines. Again, if you are or consider yourself a critical thinker, a free thinker, or more intelligent than the other average thinker, you got to bring that shit to me as well. Again, why not everyone should be talking about race. Because if you won't read a Bible when you argue against a Christian, if you're not going to actually take at least one African American studies course, or at least understand African American studies courses in the context of American politics or African American cultural demographics, don't tell me that you're honestly going to talk about race. You ain't qualified.
Black.
Yeah. So we're not gonna talk about black on black crime, but let's talk about black on black crime.
You brought it up, Alex. I have a perfectly justified explanation for this, and it does not involve melanin content of the skin. If you want to hear it, but the reason why 8% black men commit 35% of the violent crimes, which that's in and of itself just sounds racist as hell, doesn't it? It's income level. You and I had this conversation. You and I had this conversation in the car. So I'm only 5 generations. I'm giving you a shield. I'm extending my shield to him. Yeah.
Shield.
Yes, he gets the anti-racial shield right there. Because he and I had this conversation. All right. The reality is, you're dealing with.
Okay, so how do you fix this?
How do you fix it?
How do you fix it?
Okay,
that's what I always
step one.
Solutions.
Step one is you have got to figure out within white America how to disassociate race and crime, race and class.
Class.
I dare you. Right, and this is when people, critical race theories, it's fuck bullshit. It's like, okay,
income level.
I grew up in a trailer park.
Class, right. So growing up, I would have this with my old podcasting friend who would argue, well, I grew up in a racial I can
relate on that.
Totally. Would you trade your spot as a white woman in America with a black woman in America?
If I could check that box.
The fact that she didn't say, "Oh hell, yes, I want."
I don't see them in any kind of privileged position in any way.
Exactly.
I don't.
Okay, so I'm gonna hit the pause button for you there because I know that's an unfair question because it's a question that's been asked before, which is, even if you are financially underprivileged, would you take the underprivilege of a specific race and adopt that as your own identity? Would you trade that?
I don't think I would.
No, of course not. No, of course not. And the reality is, as much as we want to talk about, it's a class thing, right? And I love the cultural Marxist references that I always get, right? And it's like, yeah. So would you really trade your position with me? And the answer is no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Because wait, hold on. Wait. Atheist celebrity that deals with more hate mail.
I still would take
No, you wouldn't. Because I'm gonna tell you right. I'm gonna tell you right now that the very first
no, not just hate mail.
Death threats.
It's violent threats. Dude, you listen to this.
The violent threats. The comments about my children being raped, my daughters being raped.
That's disgusting.
Okay. So do you really believe that you would take that on? And not to even mention,
not voluntarily, no.
Not to mention that the only reason this doesn't feed me. Atheism doesn't feed me. Atheism doesn't generate this atheism celebrity doesn't generate any real income for me. I have a job. I have a real job that generates real money that this actually detracts from. This cost me money.
Do you
Yeah.
have
On a
Well,
daily. No, I do not
narrows
have a
your-
Patreon. I
Well,
do.
There's a start.
Right. I don't have a Patreon. I don't have a Patreon. And when I write, yes, I write for a profit-based company, Patheos or The Orbit. But the reality is I get so much hate mail from so many atheists when it comes to that, because those are the majority of my readers.
Yeah.
Right. That I'm like, do I really want to devote that time to that, or do I want to have conversations with people, even if it's interfaith discussions, because I find myself falling into the world of humanism first, because I give a shit about people, right?
Yeah, I do too.
Right, and I will go as far to say is I give a shit about people so much that I look at my W-2s every year and I say, I could really not give a shit about people. I am Thomas Sowell's model minority.
Oh no.
What is that?
First generation.
Yeah.
First
What
generation.
is that?
I am a byproduct of an immigrant household.
Oh yeah.
Not
You guys came from where?
from Haiti.
Haiti.
From Haiti.
Oh, you speak Creole. That's right. I saw in your bio.
I speak French and Creole.
I was about to say you speak French.
What did you?
French, Creole, and Spanish.
I got tons of questions. If you
Okay,
guys wanna
I was
throw one
gonna
out,
bring
though.
up the.
I was gonna go
the
Evergreen
Obama
State
quote.
College,
I don't do ever.
but it's
Okay.
It's not specifically Evergreen.
I
It's something that
understand.
happened
I
at
understand
Evergreen.
if he wants to avoid the evergreen. I mean, well,
So the problem with Evergreen is there's so much that's misunderstood with Evergreen, and there's so much disinformation with Evergreen, and it happens to be an exceptional case.
But this is a
with
question that's
Evergreen.
only loosely related to it.
Go for it.
Okay, so the play that it was based on was the Day of Absence, Day of Presence.
Mhm.
That's why all
and
black
which
people,
was okay,
originally it was all black people leaving campus
right?
as a show of what would you do without us?
Solidarity.
Because
Show
the play is based
solidarity.
on the play is put on by black people in whiteface, because all the black people disappeared from this town, and what would the day be like without black people? That's the play that it's based on. My question to you is a play in reverse where everyone's in white people in blackface putting on a similar something that had to do with having to be in blackface. Would that be equally okay?
Well, this is when we get into we so don't have anywhere near the amount of time to get into that.
Sarah
But-
Silverman is my hero.
This is where we generally get into the conversation of
Have you seen
punching
her
up.
do blackface in her
versus
Punching
program?
down.
Oh,
Punching up, punching down. Okay.
I remember that conversation
I
with
get
you.
it.
It's
Really, I mean, do you want to talk about 80%
This
of
is
the
an artistic
population?
I'm not
expression.
finishing that sentence.
Are we going to give some poetic license? Let's say,
You want to talk about poetic license?
not that I ever want to go to a play where someone's wearing whiteface or black.
Go ahead and tell the audience about Evergreen. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Just
Brett
go for it.
Weinstein
Yeah,
is
I'm
a
not really clear on
professor.
what
He and his wife, I think it was his wife also. So there's a tradition at Evergreen State College and other colleges where am I getting
Is the audio picking up on this?
Yeah,
Okay.
my voice carries.
All right.
Once a year, all the black people leave school for a day. It's called Day of Absence, Day of Presence. This year, a newsletter, a mass email went out saying, "Hey, we're going to flip scripts. We're going to flip the scripts. All white people are encouraged to leave if you're an ally, and if you're not, you're either with us or you're against this." First problem I have with this. And so the day comes. Brett Weinstein and his wife, specifically Brett Weinstein, just kept teaching class. Just get on YouTube and look at the resulting backlash that followed. I mean, he was shouted down. At one point, there was literally mobs in the parking lot looking for his car. Security, he got off the campus, and I think that was the last time he was ever allowed back on the campus. He didn't get fired, he just quit. But so much backlash after that.
He got death threats too, though, didn't he?
Yeah.
because he
He refused to leave on the day of absence. He was white and he refused to leave the
He's
Catholic.
also Jewish.
And every time he tried to open his mouth, you don't get to talk. This is our time to talk. You don't get a voice.
So
yeah, he has a history too.
Like
So,
like everyone's voice is not equally valid.
right, because that is so much the norm across the United States, right? Because white men in general don't get a voice in Congress, don't get a voice in politics, don't get a voice in everything else. Please go ahead. You're making a point.
Okay, true. But does that mean me, some lowly in the far reaches of the YouTube?
No, you voted for Trump.
On,
Yeah. No, I mean, come on.
Does that just because Congress is white?
Trump.
Power,
Go ahead.
White,
Trump.
So that means me, my lowly.
Trump.
I don't get the voice. I don't get.
You totally got a voice. It's Trump. Go ahead. But go right ahead.
Because what it sounds like though, when you start saying stuff like that, is you have too much of a voice. We're not going to be happy until you don't have one anymore.
Oh no! You totally. Hold on. That's what it feels like. But is that what it is?
I don't know. Tell me.
No. That's what it feels like. Hold on.
No, these are important conversations.
He makes an extraordinarily valid point. That's what it feels like. But is that what it is?
That's what you're saying.
No. It doesn't matter what I say. I only represent 13% of the population, and that's actually not the number. That's not the number. That's not the number. You're actually closer to, majority. So you're telling me by your actions what you actually feel. And given that you voted for Trump, you voted for Trump.
They didn't vote for Trump, guys.
Doesn't matter.
Don't.
Hold on. If you're gonna hold me responsible or accountable for a demographic, I'm gonna fucking hold you accountable for the same thing. You voted for Trump.
Back to the original point, though. Why should that crowd tell Brett Weinstein to shut up? It's our turn to talk. He had to explain himself why he was still on campus.
You know what? Hold on. Everyone.
We're gonna have you back on.
Hold on.
Look at the camera and say, I'm coming back.
I'm coming back on. Hold on.
Atheist Edge. Walking the edge of what some consider offensive. But your feelings don't matter here. Only facts. Edgy commentary on the dangers of doctrine, the foibles of faith, the bullshit of belief, the stupidity of superstition, and the idiocy of indoctrination. With razor-sharp wit, curiosity, and critical thought, we take an unblinking look at today's religions. We are Atheist Edge.